Hello and welcome back to another video for Final Fantasy XIV with me, Meoni. I've been busy doing the Cloud of Darkness Chaotic, as you can clearly see here, and I've managed to collect all of the pieces of gear. You can actually get these gear as individual drops from the Cloud of Darkness Chaotic itself, from the treasure coffer, from your 8-player party that you're in. You share roles with them, and obviously there are 3 8-player parties in the Alliance raid. Of course, you can also exchange the currency that drops inside there at Urshepia in Solution 9 under the Cloud of Darkness tab for totems, and as you can see, it's 2 for a helm, it's 3 totems, or Cloud Dark Demi Materia 1 as we're going to call them, for a chest and legs, and it's 2 also for hands, and it's 2 also for feet. In this video we're going to look at every single one of them then. Of course, I got the majority of my gear thanks to bonuses. There are time limited bonuses that can occur at unspecified times on certain data centers. You need to look around, but when you do queue in, you will have an opportunity to get bonuses. It's not a particularly difficult fight, but it is certainly rewarding. This then first is the tanking set. This is the Fending gear, and we thought we'd do a full preview of all of this gear, what it looks like. This, I can confirm, does work on both Viera and Hrothgar. It is working as a head replacer, so it just replaces the head of whatever character equips this, regardless of its race. There's some really nice intricate details. I was sure to go over all of these sets and look at the pieces separately and in various different detail. I love the glow from this outfit specifically. The Fending and Maiming have a really nice glow. For characters with tails, the chest piece does replace both Mikote and Aura tails, so bear that in mind. It is not a tail cover, it is a tail replacer. So we have helm replacers, as you can see here, as well as tail replacers, so bear that in mind. But it is a really cool looking set, and it reminds me of Diabolos. I think a lot of people will probably get that impression. It is certainly one of the flagship sets, I personally think, from the Cloud of Darkness Chaotic Alliance raid sets. So very cool to have this one. And of course, if you wanted to get every single set in the game, it will cost you 84 of those Cloud Dark Demi Materia 1s, just so you have a number to work with if you want to get all of these like I did. This is the Maiming set, which is essentially pretty much a recolor, apart from a few extra details. You'll notice that there is no cloak on this one, and the tail replacer is much more prominent. The glow is blue instead of red, and in dark lit areas of the game, such as dungeons, it's obviously a lot more prominent than it is in here in the Explorer mode of the dungeon that we're currently in. But of course, I really like a lot of the features. I don't know if everyone's going to like them. A lot of people like to keep their tails intact, but I think it's a cool set, and there's a nice little example of what it looks like with just the shoes without those legs, because sometimes it's difficult to know where a chest piece ends. That's why we do a lot of these previews. It is a really cool set, and it dies really nicely. We're going to do full die previews if you want to use the chapter functions or the timestamp functions listed. You can hop around to whatever race, job, etc. that you want to look at, and the dies as well. This then is the striking set, which is one of the coolest in terms of dyeing. When I first saw this set, I was like, I need that. It kind of looks like an evil moth lady or something when I wear it. Of course, we've got that open back sort of keyhole design on both the chest and the back of the chest. It has a blue crystal at the center, which is one of its defining details. You'll also notice this one has a nice red default. You will also notice when we come to the dyes later that this is one of the only sets of this variant that can actually dye those feathers on the outside. Just a quick look then of what the legs look like underneath this, because I don't think you will ever have an opportunity to see them. And they're incredibly detailed. You don't get to see that when it's underneath that massive robe. And of course, Viera and Hrothgar can actually wear this, and it will only replace your hair. It basically turns off any hair, so it's a hair replacer on this particular model, as well as a tail remover for Mikote and Aura. Just a bit of a close-up of how the Viera ears work with this. You might not like this. Personally, I prefer ears popping through this in this fashion than simply not having them, personally. And as you can see on Hrothgar there, essentially you've just got what you get with normal other characters as well, other races more traditional to the game, just the face there. It is an exceptional set, and it might be my favorite from the entire list, quite honestly. When I first saw this, I was praying and hoping that this was going to be something that was level 1 glamour, equipable by everybody. Unfortunately, that is not the case, and striking classes strike out quite well. Conversely then, this is the scouting set, which is basically the same in many ways. There are slight variations, and one of the variations you'll see later is the fact that the feathers on the side there on the back do not change color, which is one of my biggest gripes with this, because I mean, it's basically the same set, just it has less customization. It is beautiful, and my Viper is definitely going to be using this in some fashion with mixing and matching. There's a quick look at the under section that you can't see for the robe again. I love those trousers on all of these. All of the leggings are fantastic, but I just wish that we had a bit of equality with what sections were dyeable between the sets. And of course, there you go on Viera as well, looking fantastic with working ears, and of course Hrothgar as well. It's important to make an extra special mention of Viera and Hrothgar, I feel, especially when we have cash shop outfits that are still released today, more recently, where we don't have access to Viera and Hrothgar being able to use helms. So if you want some of the best, looking helms for Viera and Hrothgar, at least in my opinion, you're going to have to do Cloud of Darkness Chaotic. But it is a fun find. This then is the aiming set, which is a much bigger change in terms of variant. We still have those undyeable feathers, but you'll notice that the bottom half contains this robe. The robe is attached to the chest piece. It's not attached to the legs, before you ask. So it is attached to the main chest piece with all of these feathers and stuff like that. You can't separate it, which might turn some people off, which means it's fundamentally designed for you to never see these legs, which are very similar to the others, but they have the base color of white and black, which I think are really nice. There's a Hrothgar. Obviously, we used a Fantasia and switched between these after the fact to get that footage so that we can show these off. And there's my Viera Fantasia as well. Looking pretty great, actually. There's not a lot of clipping. You're probably going to have different mileage with different types of ear, but I think it's a fantastic set, and yeah, I'm definitely going to use this for my Bard. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. All of these sets are top tier, in my opinion, which makes it even more interesting that it's locked behind Chaotic Cloud of Darkness, and a lot of people hopefully will try the content because of these rewards. This is the healer set, the second of the last two then. We've got healers and casters, which share a lot of similarities. Essentially designed very similar to like a succubus design with those horns, which is a nice variant of the succubus horns we already have in the game. They do actually dye exceptionally well, you'll see later. Just as a little bit of an extra of them, because you can't really see the legs when the top is on, like everything else. I think those legs are gorgeous. The boots are actually gorgeous on all of these as well. I don't think there's a single part of any of these pieces of gear for any single role that I wouldn't use for glamour. There's a Viera looking absolutely gorgeous with that helm. There's a little bit of clipping here and there, but we'll accept it so that we can actually utilize these things. And yeah, this chest piece is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And there's Hrothgar as well. It is one of the nicest chest pieces. It is not just another robe. They could have very easily done what they did with aiming and gave us a robe. Personally, I would have preferred to have that style, like the striking style of, that kind of butterfly or, deformed moth like creature design, which I think is fantastic. But this is cool as well. I actually do think it's quite nice. And then the casting variant has slight differences, mostly in the gemstones. You'll see on the front there on the neck area, as well as the bottom. There's those two things sticking out the waist section on the chest piece. They have a red gemstone on the casting set, which is what you're looking at here. And previously we had this sort of bluey green gemstone. So that's the only real difference between healers and casters. There's probably a few very small extra bits that I couldn't pick up on, but it's pretty cool. And there's Hrothgar there with this much darker toned base color. And there's our Viera as well. It's nice to see the inclusion. I love the textures that they went with on all of these chest pieces, the casting one especially and the healing one. You've got a kind of like leatherette on the pauldron section, and then you've got a different kind of leather on the chest there, that keyhole design. The red gems. This is going to be absolutely wonderful to work with when it comes to making glamours. As you know, a lot of robes exist in the game for casters and healers, and it's nice when we get something that isn't a robe. So let's move on to dyes then. I try to go through all of the usual dyes that we go through. We're starting with Fending. In one direction, we're going from obviously Snow White to Metallic Purple, and the other direction for the second palette is from Metallic Purple to Snow White. That's how we do these videos if you're not familiar, and I think it's effective the way we do it. Obviously, if you've got any other requests for how things look in other dyes, then we might be able to accommodate that in future videos, but I try to go for the most popular ones and the premium dyes, and I can assure you this took me a very long time. Purchasing the dyes, dyeing them, doing the dyes for the front and back, because obviously Fran doesn't have all of these sets, so I couldn't rely on another person, so I had to record 2 sets of footage for every single dye, and we end up looking at like 30 something dyes, and then there's 7 outfits, and then 2 different perspectives. You can imagine how long this took. Yeah, it took a while. There might be a couple of mistakes here and there, as you're probably seeing on this now, but I did my very best, and I think these sets look fantastic. The dye options are really nice. I was kind of surprised how nice these things looked. The Fending set seems to work very well, as well as the Maiming set with white. White just looks really good. Like pearl white on both channels makes you kind of look like a Sin Eater, and I'm definitely all for that. Like, it's just so cool. You look like some kind of Sin Eater demon with the red eyes poking through the pure white, sort of overly contrasted gear. But at the same time, we've got a really good primary and secondary dye channel, as you can see. And I think they've done a really good job of making these sets look desirable. Look at that, the pure white and the turquoise, that looks amazing. Metallic brass is always a good color for these sets. Turning that kind of like bone texture, because it's not really metal, it's like a bone texture when you look at it, into metallic dyes really work quite well with that, as well as canary yellow and some of the brighter colors. But yeah, absolutely loving these sets. Some of my favorite sets, if not my favorite sets that they've added to the game in terms of gear. You know, you've got to remember at the end of the day, these aren't level 1 glamour pieces. These are actually pieces of gear, 730 item level, which is pretty cool, honestly. These are actually useful to your character if you haven't gone and done Savage, or in some cases, some of the pieces might be best in slot. Although I don't think for casters, or at least for my Picto, any of the pieces are, but really cool. Moving on then to striking then with these colors. Again, like I said before, you'll notice that this is probably the only set here, I think it was when I looked at this last, that has the dyeable feathers. It's superior in every way, in my opinion, to any of the other variants that follow of this particular set. The striking set just for some reason has the best dyes. It has the best options. If you want to dye those feathers, you're going to need to play a striking job, and it looks amazing. Look at that metallic brass, the turquoise, the pure white. It's just an exceptional set. It is, in my opinion, alongside the Fending one, those two are like the flagship sets that I will remember this content the most for. They just have beautiful, intricate details. They have some of the best dye options of any of the sets, and they're just so cool. They're like, if you had showed me this a few years ago, like this is what one of the sets of actual gear that you would be able to obtain in the game would look like, I would have been like, really? It looks like a completely different game. It reminds me of the old sets that we used to get from like World of Darkness, things like that. It hammers down the theme perfectly, that kind of succubus, that deformed demonic theme. The 13th is being channeled through these quite heavily in the design. I think it's just a fantastic set. Then we move obviously here to the scouting set, and the difference is quite stark. As you can see, those back feathers, they're not changing color on either the helm or the back of your, the lower back of your chest piece there, which is a real shame. Like, it's a real missed opportunity. I think that it should have had the same dye options as the striking set, but they have to have some changes, right? It's just unfortunate that the dye channels have to be the way they are, or at least I don't think this is a bug. I think this is an intentional design choice. I just wish that we had the dye channels that we had for the striking set on every other variant of the feathered version. I think it looks the best. The scouting one, you're going to have to tailor things around that color, right? Again, you're not probably going to be using every single piece of the set, but here we are on the aiming set again. Similar issue, although this time the back feathers are changing color, but the ones on the side of the hip are not. So again, we've got a slightly different variant. This one is slightly better, I think, than the scouting set in that regard, because you've got more of that block color changing on the back of your head and the back of your chest piece as well, rather than, you know, those big feathers being undyeable. The addition of the robe might interest you. Some people might not like the robe. It is very similar to a lot of robe elements that we've seen already in the game. In fact, a lot of cash shop items have that same robe, be that the noble's outfit or whatever, you might, you know, remember having that, or any of the gear in the game. It's interesting for aiming to get the robe design though. I am surprised that they didn't give this to healers, but at the same time I'm kind of happy that they didn't give that variant to healers. But at the end of the day, I really hope they do recolors or redos of this as just glamour items in the future. I mean, that has happened before. For some items, some older items, I hope to live in a day when we get these things unlocked from specific roles, because that would be really cool. Because, you know, the class fantasy isn't really present in these. It's more of a design philosophy reflecting the fight. The healer set then looks pretty good, in my opinion. The dyeing options are a little bit more infrequent in terms of my own tastes, in terms of me liking things, mostly because the metallic objects on the front of the chest look really good in brass and gold and sometimes silver, but anything outside of that, it can look a little bit garish. Whereas the other fabric main dye looks amazing, like white and turquoise looks good. Metallic brass and gunmetal black is always a good one, but there are some colors that are probably a little bit too bright for the for the metal to really look decent. You know, it kind of looks a bit strange, but it looks nice. Honestly, the individual pieces are the things I'm most interested in here, and to have a double dye channel set of succubus horns that die differently and are represented differently and have higher resolution than the ones, for example, from the gold saucer is a really nice addition. Yeah, I just kind of wish that we had access to the feathered robe as well. I do think it's a better looking set. But here you go. Here's casters, which is basically the same. The difference between caster and healer, as we said before, is the gems inlaid to the metal. So on casters, that's red, and on healers, that is a bluey green color. That's really the only major difference that I could figure out. There might be some other more subtle changes and differences, but that's all I could see on the textures when I was, you know, zooming in as far as I could with G-pose to see. But these sets look fantastic. Honestly, gunmetal black and pearl white, beautiful. You know, and metallic brass, just, it's amazing. Turquoise and pure white is probably like just the cheat option, isn't it? It looks so good. Even the pastel pink looks good there as well. There's a lot of good options, a lot of good dye ability, and I think for the casters and healers, I have no complaints in regards to what part of the palette changes what dye. It's very rare that I have a piece of gear added to the game where me personally, I go, ooh, that was a good choice. There's always usually a bit of fabric or something that doesn't dye, and it gets a really quite irritating, but I'm quite happy. So I thought I'd just, you know, show these off once more. Obviously, there's the caster one on my picto. The colors I think I like the most for that, which is conversely not the black one, but just to show you, this is the caster one with the red, and I think the red gems actually work really beautifully with the white and gold. Then for the healer, conversely, I went for red and gold with the candlestick staff, which I think is really cool. Yeah, a lot of these sets are going to be some of my favorite for a very long time, and you're going to see these a lot on my streams in the future in videos, because I'll probably end up making glamours around them. The aiming one's cool. There's my Viper. I thought that the best way to match with those wings on the back not being dyeable is to go for a dark black color as well as a dark purple and then get some weapons. That kind of works nicely, but bright colors are going to suffer. For striking, basically any of the color options for both palettes would work beautifully because everything just dyes so, I don't know what the word would be, wonderfully. Maiming, I quite liked the idea of white and gold with a nice stave, and metallic brass got some love for my Fending set. But yeah, let me know what you think about this. Do you like the content? I would say definitely join in, join once you can, because in 7.2 onwards this content won't be dead, but there'll be less people probably actively investing into the time to go and get it. So definitely jump in and give it a go. It's a lot of fun. You'll find it quite rewarding when you do eventually get a clear and get on farm. And let me know what you think of the sets. Much love, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.